that's what this video isn't going to be about. This is my alternative top 10 greatest guitar solos of all time. Now, I'm as suspicious as you probably are about these clickbaity top 10 style YouTube videos, but I hope there's going to be a bit of substance to this one, so please bear with me. You hear about the greatest guitar solos of all time, and it's always the usual suspect. It's Hotel California, it's Stairway, Comfortably Numb, maybe it's Eruption. And I don't want to come across as snobbish here. I've got nothing at all against any of those guitar solos. I know how to play them. I teach them to people on a regular basis. But this is just meant to be another perspective on what a great guitar solo can be. I have some lesser known, maybe overlooked guitar solos. I've also included some quite well-known guitar solos just because I think they're good examples of players taking a different approach to things. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just get bored of these perfectly executed guitar solos with great tone and great technique and find myself longing for something that's just a bit different. So what is alternative? And I'm not sure I can answer that. It's obviously going to mean different things to different people. And for some of you, this is just going to be a list of very obscure stuff. And for others, it's not going to be alternative enough. And I can hear people saying, call that alternative, Adrian. Why didn't you include such and such a player from the Peruvian prepared guitar scene of the 1970s? Why wasn't he in there? And that's all fair enough. You can't please everybody. And obviously this list is just a reflection of my own personal musical tastes. In the interest of keeping this reasonably focused, I've not included any jazz or avant-garde stuff. But one thing I did think I might do is remake this video in a few weeks' time and include some viewer suggestions. So take a look at my list, see whether you agree with it or not. If there's some stuff that you think I should have included, then let me know. I will choose my favourites and I'll do a little follow-up video in a few weeks' time. Now, one thing I'm probably going to be saying quite a lot in this video is that I can't actually play many of these solos note for note myself. And in most cases, I've no particular desire to do that. I think these are just genius, one-off, idiosyncratic solos, and to try and reproduce them note for note is just a bit of a futile exercise. But having said that, I am going to attempt a few of these solos. I'm certainly going to be talking about a few of the licks and going to be talking about why I think these solos are great. So let's get started with solo number 1. So this solo is probably the best known of the bunch, and the Mustang is a clue. Let me play the solo for you, then I'll explain why I chose it. So this solo was a really important one for me, and it came out round about the time that I was getting into playing guitar seriously, trying to decide what kind of guitar player I wanted to be. And you've got to remember that at the time it was the tail end of that kind of hair metal shred period, and everyone was trying to say that, if you want to play guitar, this is the kind of guitar player that you wanted to be. And then Nirvana came along and they blew that whole thing right out of the water. And at the time you had Slash playing a guitar solo standing outside a church in the middle of the desert in full rock star mode, being filmed by helicopters. And don't get me wrong, I like Slash, and if I were given the opportunity myself to play a guitar solo being filmed by helicopters in the middle of the desert, I would almost certainly take it. But at the time, that just seemed like an example of the old way of doing things, this kind of pompous guitar heroics, where Kurt Cobain was kind of the antidote to all of that stuff. And as for the solo itself, I think it's just fantastic. He's just playing the melody to the song, the hook of the song. And it's hard to imagine it being any other way. Can you imagine him playing pentatonic or blues licks over this song? It would have just ruined it. So that's an important lesson right there. Play for the song, and if all the song needs is just restating the melody, then that's what you should do as a guitar player. And it's actually a really elegant little solo as well. I love the way it flows and these lazy bends and slides, and it's perfectly formed. And this is a great example of a minimalist anti-solo, and it's literally just two notes, E and B, repeated for the entire solo. And I suppose the first thing to say is that it fits the song perfectly, which is what a solo should really do, and it fits the lyrics of the tune, and it's this totally bored, expressionless 2 notes that go on for the entire solo. But it's also very catchy and not actually as easy to play as you might think, because it's got this kind of polyrhythmic thing going on. So you've got these 2 notes in the space of 3 beats played against the 4/4 time of the tune. And of course you've got to suspect that at the time this was also some kind of up yours to the posturings of the prog rock movement. Let's have some Robert Fripp in here, shall we? He's a man known for his experimental and unique approach to guitar playing. So the solo I've gone for is St Elmo's Fire, which is taken from Brian Eno's 1975 album Another Greenwood. Almost went for Babies on Fire, which is another great Fripp solo from an Eno record. And this is one of those solos that I can't really reproduce. It's just this amazing flurry of super fast notes, really unpredictable note choice, unpredictable phrasing. And on this record, Fripp is actually credited with playing Wimshurst guitar. I often wondered what that meant, but apparently it's a reference to the Wimshurst machine, which is an electrostatic voltage generator. And it's this kind of scientific thing, and you've got these 2 electrodes and the sparks shoot between the 2 poles. And apparently Eno wanted Fripp to try and imitate this thing in his guitar solo. Can't really play this solo, but lots of these great legato flurries of notes in A minor. So lots of that kind of thing. Coffee and TV, Graham Coxon. It's another one of these kind of stroppy anti-solos. And if you allow me just to have a little bit of fun, I'm going to try and reproduce this for you. So I suppose you could see this one as a bit of a joke solo, but it's another one of those solos where it's hard to imagine the song having anything else, and it's perfect for the song. And I heard the story somewhere, I can't remember, I think it was from Coxon himself, talking about the recording of this song. And it was always the intention that this solo would be replaced at a later date. It was kind of a scratch placeholder solo, but when the time came to redo the solo and replace it with something proper, they just realised that they couldn't beat it, and it was absolutely perfect the way it was. And the solo is really just Coxon making these mad noises, and we got some big bends and some vibrato, and he's playing around with his pedal board. And if you listen closely, you can hear the individual pedals coming in and out. You can certainly hear the tremolo pedal coming in quite strongly at one point, and I think it's a great solo. It's probably the ultimate anti-solo. So this one is Clap Hands by Mark Ribot, taken from the Tom Waits album Rain Dogs. And this was just a really striking solo when I first heard it. It's just so weird and sinister. And since then, Mark Ribot has been quite a big influence on my own playing. And I love the fierceness of this one and the attack. Lots of great bending. The phrasing is great. And some nice dissonant stuff as well. I think my favourite lick in the solo is this one. I don't even know what that is, but it's great. We've just got this series of big interval skips and seemingly random open string in there as well. So yeah, genius. Also like both Waits and Ribot's approach to getting sounds. And I've heard a story, I'm not sure where I heard it, about Tom Waits when he's recording, and he can obviously pay thousands of dollars to go to the nicest studios, but then he ends up recording in the broom cupboard next door with a broken microphone that's pointed in the wrong direction. And I think that's just a great approach to recording sometimes. So this one is Maggot Brain by Funkadelic, and not sure exactly how alternative this one is. I think this is just one of the all-time great guitar solos, full stop. And if you've not heard it before, you're in for a treat. It's just 10 minutes of the most face-melting guitar soloing you're ever likely to hear, and described by some bloke on the internet as an emotional apocalypse of sound. Played by the great Eddie Hazel. It's in E minor, and it's just a repeated 4-chord progression that he's soloing over. So E minor for 2 bars, then D, then B minor, and then C. And mostly what he's playing is just box 1, position 1, E minor pentatonic, but what expression he can get out of it, and his great use of the wah-wah pedal and his vibrato, his phrasing, everything is fabulous in this solo. So this next solo is Hard on Me by Richard Thompson, and again I can't play this entire solo note for note, although with this one I think it is a learnable solo, and I might do that myself at some point and maybe make a full lesson on it. But I can play the opening little phrase, so let me do that. Richard Thompson then, one of the greats I think, whether he's playing acoustic or electric, and obviously he's very well respected, but I just don't think he's as widely spoken about as perhaps he should be. And I could have chosen any number of Richard Thompson solos to look at, but this is a particular favourite of mine. It's taken from the album Mock Tudor, and it's got everything you expect from a Richard Thompson solo. There are obviously elements of blues and country in there, but there's a kind of weird angularity that I think is Richard Thompson's own, which I really like. And again, there's that attack in there, which is something I'm talking about in quite a few of these solos. There's one lick in particular in there which I really like, and I'll show you that now. I've actually stolen this one and use it quite a lot myself. It goes like this. So we've got these big interval skips and this nice angular sound. So starting on this high G and then skipping over to an F sharp and giving that a half step bend, and then we're just moving that shape down the fretboard. And then we're ending it in a kind of melodic phrase. So wonderful phrase, that one. So I wanted to do something a little bit older. This one is Train Kept a Rollin' by Johnny Burnett and the Rock and Roll Trio from the 1950s. And the song's been covered by lots of people, famously by Led Zeppelin. And it's just a great, raw, primitive rock and roll solo. It really is what rock and roll is all about, I think. Played by a man called Paul Burleson. And the sound on this one is particularly unique. And the story I heard is that he was loading in his amp at some gig and he dropped the amp, and they plugged it in and it wasn't working properly and it had this distortion sound, and they fell in love with the sound and never bothered to get the amp fixed in the end. And the technique used to play this solo is interesting as well. It's all played in octaves on the outside pair of strings, so we're just fretting the same fret on the high E and the low E, and you can play this with your thumb on the low E and then maybe your index finger on the high E, and you get this kind of thing. And it's all played like that on the outside 2 strings. myself waves of fear trying to perform that solo, I think. So there you are, Robert Quine. Let me take you through those licks note for note. Just kidding, of course. I think with something like this, you just need to attack the guitar, basically. So yeah, this is Robert Quine's amazing solo from the Lou Reed track Waves of Fear. And I just love the abandon and the intensity of this solo. It's a scary song and it's a scary solo, and it perfectly fits the song, you know. It's kind of edgy and paranoid and completely up. Sorry, getting a bit carried away there. This is Cortez the Killer by Neil Young, of course, and I'm attempting to play in a vaguely Neil-like way there. So yeah, Neil Young, Cortez the Killer. I don't really know what to say about this. Maybe this is too mainstream a choice. I think this is fairly widely regarded as one of the great guitar solos, but still I think Neil Young is a little bit misunderstood, and actually came across a story this week that apparently Eric Clapton and George Harrison were at the side of the stage during a Neil Young show, and they were chuckling to themselves about how messy and sloppy his guitar playing was. And they're kind of missing the point, really. He's great because he is so sloppy, and I think Neil Young taught me the beauty of this messy, emotional, melodic kind of guitar playing. I think it's just great. So I could have chosen any number of Neil Young solos. In the end, I went for Cortez the Killer just because I like the emotion and the melody of it. And things I like about Neil Young's playing, the phrasing is great. It's unpredictable. He's not always thinking about specific rhythms, it seems to me. It's just kind of flowing out of him. Now, I like the way he finds melodies. Often he's playing up and down the length of single strings just to find those emotional notes. He's got a great use of open strings and droning notes. So in this one, we've got the high and low E strings tuned down to D. So you can kind of play kind of melodies on the B string whilst allowing the open string to drone away. And as I said, Neil Young really taught me the beauty of this kind of ragged, emotional way of playing the guitar. I know this song does sometimes get into the proper lists of the greatest solos of all time, but it's never quite high enough, I don't think. So in my opinion, this should probably be top 5, if not number 1. That's about it for this video. I hope you found my ramblings vaguely interesting. And for those of you who don't know some of these solos and players, I hope it's inspired you to maybe check out some of these great guitar players. Now, as I said, I'm planning on doing a follow-up video to this based on your suggestions. So if you disagree with my list, or if you think I should have included some other stuff, then let me know. I'll choose my favourites and I will include them in a follow-up video in a few weeks' time. Thanks very much for watching. I shall see you next time. Bye-bye.